There's gonna be one speed, mine. If you can't keep up, don't step up. You'll just die. Herc? Oh, I think I fell on my keys. Hello and welcome to Season 2 of Gamebox, the show where we take a look at games of yesteryear. And today, we'll be taking a look at a game from the Xbox era. Yes, you heard me correctly, I said Xbox. A game that I have heard of in the past but never got a chance to play, and boy was I missing out. A game that ended up exceeding the expectations that people had of games of this type, that being games based on films. Some are good, while others, not so much. A stigma that plagued games of this type. A stigma that still exists today. A little game called Chronicles of Riddick, Escape from Butcher Bay. Developed by Starbreeze Studios and published by Vivendi Universal and Tygon Studios. Which, on a side note, I found out that Vin Diesel was a founding member.
It's all about family, Tom.
I don't know, just something I thought was interesting. But before we get into that, we do need to talk about the film that inspired the production of today's game. So the year 2000 brought many interesting things. For one, the world didn't end with the whole Y2K thing. George Bush became president, but most importantly, we got a little film by the name of Pitch Black. For the uninitiated, Pitch Black told the story of a transport spaceship that ends up crash landing on a planet that is home to a very hostile alien species. Now the surviving crew must work together with a criminal named Riddick in order to survive the night. This film showcased the character Richard B. Riddick, a character that ended up becoming a fan favorite. This due to his tough guy demeanor and the voice of a badass.
Johns, better luck next time.
The film was made with a budget of $23 million and grossed over $53 million worldwide, so not too shabby. But these earnings were enough to entice the powers that be to pursue a trek into the wonderful realm of video games. And who would be the ones to lead this fantastic voyage? A game company called Starbreeze Studios. Starbreeze Studios was founded by a Swedish programmer, and I apologize in advance for my pronunciation, Magnus Hogdahl. This formation of the studio came after the project Into the Shadows was cancelled, a project Magnus had been working on. This cancellation gave him the fire to create his own studio in order to work on his own projects, as well as a game engine. Starbreeze Studios was created in 1998. However, this was the start of the rocky road that was the history of Starbreeze Studios. A bit later in 1998, a deal was made with the publishers Gremlin Interactive for their fantasy game called Sorcery, a 3D first-person RPG. Unfortunately, Gremlin Interactive was acquired by Infogrames in 2000. This acquisition dissolved the previously established deal with Starbreeze Studios, meaning that Sorcery was cancelled. This cancellation did unfortunately put Starbreeze Studios into some financial woes, but in those woes, Starbreeze Studios was able to merge the O3 games, and the upside of this merger was Starbreeze Studios was able to keep their name. Their next project would be with the smorgasbord of publishers including Swing Entertainment, Conspiracy Entertainment, and Vivendi. This new project was called Enclave. This game was to be a medieval fantasy multiplayer game. However, during this time, Swing Entertainment was facing bankruptcy. This in turn changed the focus of Enclave from a multiplayer game to a single player focused one. This change had the game come out sooner than expected, which led to mixed reviews. This unfortunate stumble also led to Starbreeze Studios downsizing as a result. The next title was Knights of the Temple Infernal Crusade with TDK Mediactive. This project was a hack and slash game set during the Crusades. Again, this game received average reviews. After this, Starbreeze Studios will go on to try a partnership with another studio by the name of Rock Solid Games. But this deal fell through and placed more financial strain on the studio. But fret not, as there was a light at the end of the tunnel. So straight off the heels of Enclave, a prototype was made in 3 months under the working title of Pitch Black. This prototype was made to show off some of the ideas that the developers have for this new project. This new project was greenlit, and the development went into full swing early 2002. There were several properties that inspired the direction of Escape from Butcher Bay, games like GoldenEye and the Splinter Cell series, even Punch-Out, as well as films like Escape from Alcatraz. Vin Diesel,
It's all about family, Tom.
and director David Tooney were involved with the development, having a hand in character design and dialogue. The game's story was made in conjunction with the films. Another side note, Riddick did originally have more lines in the game, but that was toned down as Diesel believed the character would not have spoken as much, which makes sense. The development focused on a single player experience, due to the possibility of adding multiplayer may have added more development time and team members that they didn't have at the time, so single player it was. Starbreeze Studios also envisioned an elaborate RPG system for the game, but Mr. Diesel, that sounds wrong, Vin? Yeah, Vin sounds good. Vin was able to persuade them not to go that route. There was even a PS2 version in the works. However, during development, Starbreeze Studios was starting to stand on shaky ground as Vivendi was considering pulling the plug on the entire project. Fortunately, they were able to be convinced to stay their hands. This resulted in the planned PS2 port to be scrapped to focus on the Xbox version. Vin Diesel
It's all about family, Tom.
would go on to promote the game in May 2004 at E3. A bit later, Vivendi confirmed the rumors that were floating around that a Windows port for the game was indeed in the works. This port was the Chronicles of Riddick, Escape from Butcher Bay Director's Cut. This port would have an extra gameplay section and run at a higher resolution. Escape from Butcher Bay had the voice talents of Vin Diesel,
It's all about family, Tom.
okay, I'll stop, who reprised his role as Riddick, and Cole Hauser, who reprised his role as Johns. It even had Exhibit, Ron Perlman, and Michael Rooker in the cast. Not too bad. Escape from Butcher Bay was released for Xbox on June 1st, 2004 in North America, and on August 13th, 2004 in Europe. It was also released for Windows on December 3rd, 2004 in Europe, and December 8th, 2004 in North America. Reception for the game was overall great, to the surprise of many critics, even earning awards for Unsung Hero Game of the Year and Best Game Based on a Movie. And with that, let's take a look at today's game.
Come on, jackass. Come on, don't act like you're asleep.
Set before the events of the films Pitch Black, The Chronicles of Riddick, and Riddick has been captured by his best frenemy Johns, and is on his way to be delivered to a triple max slam known as Butcher Bay. A man named Hoxie runs the slam and is happy to welcome Riddick to his new home. Now within the walls of Butcher Bay, Riddick must shoot, punch, or stab whoever it takes to escape from a slam that is considered inescapable.
You gonna fight or not? It's 5 UDs.
I'll fight.
Escape from Butcher Bay has 3 gameplay mechanics. This is stealth, shooting, and hand-to-hand combat. The stealth in this game works well. Riddick moves pretty quickly while crouched, which was nice. He can also take down enemies in stealth mode. The game itself is meant to be played this way, as being spotted can lead to an all-out shootout, which sometimes can lead to death as Riddick may be ill-prepared for such encounters. But when he does get his hands on a weapon, oh boy does it get crazy, which leads us into shooting. The aiming felt loose to me. I was missing shots like crazy. I wasn't a fan of this, and ended up just shooting and hoping I hit something. You can zoom in for more accuracy by pressing the black button, something I found out by accident during the final boss fight, so that one's on me. Riddick does have access to several weapons which include a rifle, a shotgun, a pistol, a tranquilizer gun, and a minigun. The minigun makes the parts it's introduced in easy peasy. The same can be said about the tranquilizer gun for stealth, but it does have a bit of a reload time, so that's something to keep in mind. The guns don't feel too bad. There are also grenades, something I really didn't use much at all, maybe once or twice, and at the later part of the game. The hand-to-hand combat was another highlight of the game, and it does work very well. Riddick can perform different attacks by moving the left analog stick up, right, or left. He can also block and perform a counter move, something that I almost always did on accident. Along with his mitts, Riddick can attain other instruments of death. There's a shiv, a baton, and good old-fashioned knuckle dusters. The cool thing about combat is that Riddick will have to switch up what weapon he's using depending on what his opponent is using, as some weapons are more effective at blocking attacks. For example, if you have a shiv equipped, you can't block an attack from a baton, though the method of changing weapons I wasn't the biggest fan of. In order to do so, you have to cycle through your weapons by pressing the Y button, then press the right trigger to select. It doesn't sound too bad, but during a combat encounter it can be a slight pain in the ass. Another cool thing this game does is it shows the origins of Riddick's iconic eye shine. This lets Riddick see in the dark and makes him a true predator in the darkness. But the player does need to be careful, as you can blind yourself with light sources. Another quick side note, if you are forced into a combat encounter, you can negate it by crossing a load screen. I don't know, just something I thought that was pretty funny. There are some parts that are linear, but there are also some parts that will open up for some exploration, or as much exploration as Triple Max Slam will let a prisoner have. Oh damn it! This also lets the player obtain side missions that will reward Riddick with Cold Hard Space Bucks or packs of smokes, which unlocks extra content. Also, don't try to rely on the map for direction, as it only tells you your general area and not the exact position. But with how some of the areas are structured, it wasn't too hard to find my way around. The bosses were alright. I know, surprising coming from me. Some were tough, but only because I didn't have the right weapon, so I had to just stick and move, while others were easy peasy, letting me move side to side and shoot. In my opinion, Escape from Butcher Bay doesn't look too bad for a game that came out in 2004. There were some hinky things with the graphics or some weird camera placement during conversations, but it wasn't too bad. There were some hard shadows throughout the game. In fact, I originally thought it was the same game engine used in Doom 3, but the engine used here was made in-house by Starbreeze Studios. The sound was done well and the voice worked great. As far as music, there wasn't much while exploring, but it does kick in during action moments. The environment does lean towards a dirty color palette, but given it takes place in a dingy space prison, the choice makes sense. Also, the filter while using the eye shine was pretty cool too, but overall I didn't have any performance issues during my gameplay.
Alright, I bet this is what you've all been expecting, huh? Riddick versus Ben.
So, all in all, is this a game you need to go out and play? Yes. A definite hard yes. Escape from Butcher Bay breaks the mold of games based on movies. Maybe it's due to the game not following the events of a movie, or that each of the gameplay mechanics works well. It plays as a fun and challenging stealth game, a fun shooter, and a fun melee game. I will say, I wasn't a fan of the weapon selection method, or how the camera will pull out a first person to show off some animations, or the aiming, but those are minor in comparison to the game overall. And the camera thing I did end up getting used to after playing for a bit. There were some times where I would end up messing up a stealth section and immediately get gunned down by guards, which became frustrating. But it was an enjoyable frustration. When you get past a difficult section, you just gotta fist pump. But with that being said, I definitely feel this is one of those games that everyone has to try at least once. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a triple max prison to escape from.
It ain't the fall that gets you. It's a sudden stop at the bottom.
Hey, welcome to the end of the video. I thank you for making it this far. This game was fun to do, as I had to get used to using the Xbox controller again, but I'm excited to get to the other games that I had gotten for the system. For the next game, we'll be taking a look at the sequel that came out 5 years after this one. But until then, you know what to do, spread the awesome, and I'll see you next time.